Hello everyone, Bear here as we take a look at some of the top picks for strategy games coming out in 2022, many of which brought to bear for the courtesy of the Steam Next Festival. Now as always, if any of these games take your interest, do not forget to hit that wishlist, as in talking to various indie developers I can honestly say it really does make a huge difference on how the games are promoted across the Steam platform. Now there are a lot of games to check out, so I've actually turned this video into a two-parter, so if you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, then don't forget to keep your eyes out for part 2. But with that out of the way, and since we're here for the games, here are the top strategy games to keep your eye on in 2022. And starting us off, one that completely took me by surprise and has already claimed the title as the best space shuttle building empire management space sim I have ever played. And that has nothing to do with the fact that that is an extremely narrow margin to hit. Now just as you'd imagine by that intro, this is a realm builder. You will be building up your space station and controlling the development of its population, as well as the research and technologies that ensure that its inhabitants maintain a relatively good level of life. Or if you're good at the game, perhaps even a good level. Now all of this is done in order to ensure that you'll be able to take your spaceship into the outer reaches of the solar system. The space station, known as Tikan, which I cannot pronounce for the life of me, is set on a mission to find humanity's new home. In order to do this, you'll need to make sure its inhabitants survive, providing housing, providing food, providing water, as well as developing the various space shuttles and systems that will need to be maintained in order to ensure your people actually survive to get there, as well as engage in the various phenomena that appear throughout your travels. And the game definitely shows plenty of potential with the consideration of, as you're going about your travels, you have an entire star system from which to engage in, with the game following a chapter system for its story, revealing new threats and opportunities to engage with new people you meet as you explore upon your journey to your new home, providing a unique aspect of settlement management in that, unlike in normal games where you'll have to deal with the world as it is, dealing with the aspect of the maps that appear when you first load the game, instead, your map is going to be continually changing as you continue to move your space station. Not to mention, there are going to be a fair few hazards in space that you will have to deal with, as can be seen by the fact hull integrity is actually a monitored aspect of your station, with hull breaches, overloads, electrical fires, all of which impeding your progress and having to be dealt with as they arrive, as well as food. Food was a real issue actually in this demo, and I have to admit right now that I think there might have been a glitch in the game, as I had a bunch of refractories and it did absolutely nothing. That, or it might have been an inbuilt deadman switch for the demo to end rather than let you play the entire thing. I'm not quite sure, but either way it definitely did the job. Now being a story-driven game, there is definitely a narrative to this, and it does well to slowly introduce you to the world and the factions at play while integrating tutorialization, all the while still providing enough freedom of choice in how you build and design your station as you prepare for the dangers to come. Now being in space, you are going to have to access different panels to access different parts of the ship. Starting off with our interior view, we can see the first of 6 sectors, each sector being unlocked as you progress through the story, allowing you to gain a larger population, as well as being able to build more of these larger structures, such as the docking bays, which as you can see take up a ton of space, meaning you are going to need multiple sectors in order to house them all. Now given this is just a demo, we are locked into only a select amount of buildings and a select amount of technologies, meaning that we will have to wait until the game is fully released to actually see just what can be done with all the different aspects of this game, though it does give enough of a hint as to exactly what we'll be able to do when the full game is released and we're able to access all of those different sectors and all of those different buildings. Now thankfully the game isn't 100% hands-on. You are going to be able to divvy out some of that workload by simply setting the priorities for how your fleets go about their activities, harvesting that food, or engaging in that research. And next on our list, and sticking with the realm builder genre, we have Celestial Empires, this time very much leaning in towards the classic experience. I say this because as far as I can tell, there isn't any inclination as of yet that there will be war. That is to say, when looking at their Steam page, there is nothing to suggest that they'll be introducing troop management or barracks buildings into the game at a later stage. Now this suggests by no means that the game will be easy. In fact, they've stated very clearly that because of the season system that you will need to prepare for and then survive winter. And Right now, this basically means the sudden shift to everything being white, but it does have a large impact on your peoples, and in particular the production buildings, suggesting that saving up your resources, at least a season or so early, is going to be a rather advantageous move in the long run. But of course, it doesn't just end there. Alongside the ever-consistent threat of winter, you will have to fight various natural disasters, as well as some godly ones, with even the suggestion that you will be able to negotiate with the gods. Now, currently in the demo, we can only see faith in the terms of the production of shrines, putting them closer to your housing, providing more and more individuals to be devout followers of that faith, giving you faith points into one of the 4 gods available, with, if you should choose to ignore these, those points then going in towards the negative. Now, all of these disasters you'll be fighting against will provide that secondary challenge to the game once you've got your empire built up. That being said, building up that empire is by no means an easy feat, as thanks to all that interconnectivity, you're going to have to be juggling and balancing a whole lot of different features all simultaneously, with, if you're losing money, needing to introduce more people to increase their taxes, it's simultaneously reducing the amount of food available and changing the amount of space available for your lumberjacks to gain their wood, and increasing the amount of faithful in an area where you may not have wanted that god to have any more. A lot of thought is going to need to be put into exactly how you expand, and for fans of this genre, that is by no means a bad thing. Taking for example, we can see straight away from this green line how all of the functions of the marketplace are linked into the other areas via the road. Now, there is a limit to how far this link can go, as we come towards our warehouse, we'll notice that the green does stop, as well as a break in a road causing the green to disappear. After then building the road, we can see this expand to include a larger area, and this area of influence will increase the happiness of the people present. Now, as the game expands later in development, we do have suggestions of more decisions being brought into the game, with each of these decisions shaping the direction of your settlement's development, as well as potentially angering or pleasing the gods being a rather ever-present thing within the various different marketing available for Celestial Empire. But eventually, when you're able to expand and create a fairly harmonious settlement and a somewhat amicable agreement with the gods, you will be able to engage in trade, unlocking new partners and engaging with the different landlords of the realms. Now, I have to say, if you're going to include trade with these different landlords, it does make sense to later introduce some war, so although I'm hopeful, I'm not holding my breath. But quite frankly, the game doesn't actually need it. If you're a fan of realm builders, then most of the joy, as you will know, is simply in building the empire itself, forging your kingdom, keeping your people happy, protecting against those natural disasters, and seeing just how well you can do to expand that domain, and honestly, reveling in your own glory. The development team has stated that you can get in touch with them directly over on their Discord. So if you found this game interesting, don't forget to go and give it a check out. That went very suddenly snowy. But moving along, we come to one of my most awaited games of this Steam Next festival. Quite honestly, I actually found out about this simply because of their logo and the fact the company's name is Dancing with Dragons. That was basically all I needed to pique my interest. However, in following them on Twitter, I'm learning more and more about what this game has to offer. Symphony of War is basically the game I've always wanted, actually being made. With one slight exception, though it is entirely personal, and that's simply that if when you first see this, you don't instantly think Fire Emblem or Lingrasur, then this may not actually matter to you, but for me, this really needed to be manga. Oh, and when you pick a character, always go for the girl. There's something about the male avatar that just doesn't quite sit right with me, whereas the female one definitely seems like it's had a bit more polish put to it. Yes, that is actually how much of an issue I've had in finding problems with this game, that I've had to look in detail at the characters. Then coming over to their store page, we can see a lot more about it, with more of that unit variety coming in, as well as some sneaky hints of the artifacts and equipment we'll be able to bestow upon our characters, atop some of the more devastating enemies we'll be coming up against as the campaign progresses. And in particular, I'm looking over at the actual progression of soldiers, as let's face it, the basic soldiers always have the best stories in these games, being recruited from a lonely fighter, making their way all the way up to being a champion, all of which coming at the cost of your resources, something you'll have to pick up as you go about the campaign. So if for no other reason than just for me, do make sure to hit the wishlist on this one, as I seriously want to see it being completed. But let's take a look at some of the details that will be coming in through their development. Of course, they have made suggestions of 30 to 40 hours of campaign with replayability included. We are going to have to wait until it's fully released to actually see how that works. However, the 50 plus character classes is a massive bonus. But also we can see some more of those mechanics coming in. Now, during the demo, the weather was always fine, meaning there wasn't much to consider with it, and the environmental conditions really only came down to the fact there were roads increasing our movement, and hills and platforms providing better range for our archers. But over on Steam, they have promised that you will be able to maneuver squads of up to 9 soldiers across battlefield, seizing the advantage by grabbing high ground, holding choke points, fairly standard fare, but also ambushing from the woods. Something they've hinted at in the demo with your lightly armored fighters being able to move more quickly through them, though it didn't really seem to make a substantial difference as of yet in the development. And what's very interesting to see though is that there will be blizzards and heat waves introduced to the game, actually giving weather some kind of change to how the game progresses and how those battles play out. With the enemy's morale, something that once more was in the demo but not holding a huge part to it, hopefully having more of an effect in combat as you progress and rank up your party. And with the relationships that have been teased within this demo, they've stated that these will be dynamic in nature, as well as unlocking not just the conversations themselves, but also unbreakable bonds. More importantly, powerful bonuses between characters. Yet again, linking into that concept of progression and a huge amount of different mechanics all interconnecting and working together in order to provide a genuinely broad and hopefully deep tactical experience. Starting off the tutorial, you'll be introduced to a one-on-one battle, though this is definitely deceptive. Quickly the game reveals that actually you're going to be moving around in squads. And this is a huge deal, as you'll be able to compose those squads how you want. You want to go all in on light armored soldiers, moving swiftly about the battlefield and engaging the enemy in close combat, stacking it full of cavalry and just charging the hell out of everything. Or like myself, if you prefer a little bit more of a balanced approach, having a front line of soldiers, back line of archers, maybe even throwing in some support classes to heal any damage up, the options are there, leading to some serious tactical considerations in how you set up each squad, how you align the soldiers within it to ensure the enemy cannot get all the way back to the back line. Yes, that is a real thing you'll need to be thinking about, all the while still providing the ability to level up individual soldiers within the squadron, customization of squads, leveling of individuals, mechanics for your overall party, interpersonal relations, all alongside a classic turn-based combat system. And did I mention the pixels? Symphony of War is literally brimming over with features, not to mention that thanks to all this variety and all of those mechanics interconnecting, there's going to be plenty of availability for anyone to tailor their forces and make every run completely unique. But in loading up the first level, we really begin to see actually how this plays out. With victory and defeat conditions all being fairly simple, losing Lindley will lead to defeat, seizing the Eastwall Fortress, the final fortress at the top of the map, being our victory, as well as additional challenge missions to complete throughout the level, including the fact that we will be able to use hills to increase the range of our archers to engage the enemy, promoting the strategic use of the on-map features, not to mention the fact that we will need to be seizing objectives, providing us access to resources we can use for researching technologies, improving weapons, gaining artifacts, not to mention alongside leveling up our soldiers, we are increasing the rank of our party at the main party base. And if you've seen any of my playthroughs before, you know how much I love all of these mechanics, and I think the way I presented this is kind of given some idea of just how happy I am all of this has come together. And given the amount of progression that is based within this game, not only moving through the story, but also in leveling up your characters and gaining access to those higher level, higher ranked mercenaries and equipment, changing the classes and upgrading your soldiers, giving them better equipment and unlocking more of the technologies within your main base, this is definitely a game that I'm looking forward to really sinking my teeth into and seeing just how much you can expand and develop your soldiers in a full-blown campaign. And next on our list as we press along our merry way is Crimson Tactics, The Rise of the White Banner. Now currently in the demo we only actually have access to the 3 missions, though within these 3 missions we can see a fair amount about the game. Though I will note before we continue, there is the inclusion of character development and some level of customization, which unfortunately with this being a demo, we do not have access to. I'll be looking forward to seeing how they expand upon this in the future, introducing even more variety to what is a pretty open game as it is. So in drawing from such classics as Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, there's going to be a whole lot more of that variety to come. Shifting over to Steam and checking out their gameplay features, you can see straight away that there are currently to be over 25 classes, and containing over 200 abilities, not to mention that you can mix and match hundreds of different kinds of weapons. It all sounds good and definitely pointing in the right direction, and I'll certainly be looking forward to see how this all comes together in the future. But in getting to the levels themselves, despite the fact that there is such variety in all those different abilities, I will state there's still a long way to go for us to really start to see them all coming together. For starters, the separation of spell, special ability, and finisher, I appreciate that this is a demo and therefore having a full-blown tutorial may be a little too much to ask, but it does feel like some explanation of those differences might be quite useful, as honestly I've just been using those finishers to be standard special abilities as they're incredibly good. In going into those special abilities, there is still very little text to explain exactly what's going on, with instead simply additional damage being shown, 1.25 times damage that is, alongside their mana cost. But considering they both say 1.25, it can be slightly confusing as to exactly what the difference is and why there's an additional cost of 75 mana. Something that yes, eventually will be sorted out, but it would have been nice to see it included in the demo itself, even if as simply bland explanatory text, just making that initial experience a little bit easier to deal with. As well as the fact that, as we can notice a bit of a bug here, this character currently shows no signs of damage at 450 HP with 80 mana and 80 TP TE, whereas if we take a look at their actual icon, we can see quite clearly that they've lost a fairly substantial amount of health. I'm definitely not saying any of this is a bad thing, I'm just pointing out that judge this for what it is. It's an early demo showcasing the direction of the game and all that has been developed so far. There's a long way to go, but if you enjoy tactics games, this will definitely be one to keep an eye on, as I've followed their team over on Twitter for a fairly long time now, and they are certainly active within the community. And given the narrative focus of the game, we'll have to wait and see just how well the writing holds up the full campaign. But it's games like this that the Steam Next Festival and indie demos are all about. It's allowing developers to show what they have done so far, and allowing players to take a preview, a sneak peek at how things are, and get a hint of what is yet to come. And just as the festivals, this is the entire point of the video. And on a quick side note, I'd also like to state that the team were extremely active in engaging with the community, responding to all that took the time to go and play the game, and most importantly, engaging in some last minute patches to ensure the game was up and ready to be checked out. But more importantly, if you check over on their Steam forums section, you'll actually see that quite a few of the different mechanics of the game and even story aspects have been questioned, and some pretty nice hints have been given, including the fact there will be multiple events and choices within the game that will actually shape your journey, which, given its narrative focus and sheer potential for customization, could well breathe the way for a fair bit of replayability in going about and finding what those different options will provide. And I have to admit that if the answer isn't simply more people riding dragons, then I actually might be a little disappointed. I'm afraid that will have to do for today as part 1 of our look at the upcoming strategy games that you should be keeping your eye on. So if there are any you feel that I've missed out, do making sure to give us a shout, but have a quick look through the channel first to making sure I haven't already done a video on them. But either way, thank you very much for tuning in, and if you want to help the channel out, or more importantly, help out the developers of those games, if you know someone who enjoys strategy games, don't forget to send this their way. But either way, I hope you've enjoyed and found a new game to be looking forward to, and as always, peace out.